Carolina Storyteller tells stories that may not be suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised. Stay spooky, my friends. Hey folks, welcome back to the Carolina Storyteller. I am Jonathan Phoenix, the Carolina Storyteller. I know this episode got a little late, but don't worry, because we've got episode 47 here for you. Episode 48 will be dropping tonight with it, so you guys will get to hear both episodes all at once. But before we get into that, I want to remind everyone that if you go to patreon.com/The Carolina Storyteller, there's still time to get signed up for the big giveaway on episode 50. Okay, we've got just a few weeks to go. Week after next, we're going to be going into episode 50, and we're going to be naming who wins all those great prizes. I've got a CD from Midgar. I've got stickers from Truth or Demons podcast. I've got a hat for you, the Carolina Storyteller hat, all kinds of fun, neat things that are going to be given away just for signing up. With that being said, it's time to get into today's story. Today's story is a very interesting one, and it takes us back to Mother Russia. Yes, Dutch Vidania, comrades, we're going back to Russia because I don't have anything better than to talk about something that happened in Russia. No, seriously, honestly, this is one of the creepiest stories that happened in Russia. So, if you know anything about Russia, Russia has some of the harshest climates in the world in their mountain ranges and in the Siberian area. Yet people still go out there and battle the elements. In 1959, to be correct, in February of 1959, a group of students and their instructor left to travel what is now known as the Dyatlov Pass. These 9 students would apparently be the reason that this pass is now named Dyatlov Pass. They would end up going missing, and what was found when they were found has left speculation, and just everybody is just confused by this. No one has ever figured out this mystery as to what happened to the hikers on Dyatlov Pass. So, let me tell you the story. It was February of 1959, and this group of hikers were doing a skiing expedition in the northern Ural Mountains, just around Oblast, the Soviet Union. There was 9 of them. Igor Dyatlov was leading the group, and among them there were some grade 2 hikers, grade 3 certified hikers. These people all knew what to do and how to do it in this area. They left on January 23rd to start the hike and took what was known as the number 5 trail. It started out as 11 people, but one of them ended up staying behind. Now I'm going to try to name out all of their names here, but if I mess it up, I apologize to anybody of Russian descent or who might know them. We have Igor Alexeyevich Dyatlov, Yuri Nikolaevich Doroshchenko, Lyudmila Alexandrova Debnibia, Gregory Alexeyevich Krivolinsky, Alexander Sergeyevich Kolotov, Zinaida Alexeyevna Kolmogorov, and that's a mouthful, Rustem Vladimirovich Slobin, Nikolai Vladimirovich Tiboks Brignoles, Semyon Alexander, Alexeyevich Zotolov, and Yuri Yefimовich Yudin. Now, this group had extensive training in hiking, and had actually been through the area before. This was kind of like a standard train. And not a standard train, a standard hike for them. They traveled to Ivadel by train, which was a town in the center of the Oblast province, and arrived there on the early morning of January 25th, 1959. They then took a truck up to the village at the beginning of the trail. They began their trek on the 27th, and then on the 28th, Yuri Yudin, who had health ailments, turned back because his knee and his joint pain just made it unbearable for him to continue the hike. That left 9 people continuing the trek on, climbing this mountain. They were supposed to send a postcard back on the 12th, I believe. On February 12th, they were supposed to send a postcard back, and they had not sent any word. So this made Yuri Yudin, who was knowing what they were supposed to do, very concerned. So he began to ask questions, and on February 20th, the relatives demanded that a rescue operation be sent. The first rescue groups consisted of volunteers, students, and teachers, but later the Army and the police forces became involved with planes and helicopters. It wasn't until February 26th that the searchers found the abandoned campsite, and it was just trashed. It was just baffling. The student that found the tent said the tent was half torn down, covered with snow, and it was empty, and all of the group's belongings and shoes, everything had just been left behind. None of it made any sense. Investigators said that the tent had actually been cut open from the inside. 9 sets of footprints left by people wearing only socks or a single shoe on one, and even barefoot, were followed, leading down to the edge of the nearby woods on the opposite side of the pass, about a mile away. After about 500 meters, though, the tracks that were covered in snow began to vanish. This is when they started finding the bodies. Near the forest edge, underneath a large pine tree, they found the visible remains of a small fire. There they found the first 2 bodies of Krivonishkevich and Dorsky. They were shoeless, dressed only in their underwear. The branches on the tree were broken up about 5 meters high, like someone had tried to climb the tree, or at least one of them may have. Between the pine tree and the camp, the searchers found 3 more bodies: Dyatlov, Komogrova, and Slobolin. They all died in some form of undress, but it looked as if they were trying to get back to the tent from the tree line. They were maybe 300 to 600 meters from the tree. They found the remaining 4 travelers within the next 2 months. It was May 4th when they found the last one under 4 meters of snow in a ravine 75 meters further into the woods from the pine tree. 3 of the 4 were a little better dressed than the others, and there were signs that some of the clothing for those who had died had been removed and used for the others. Dubana was wearing Krishkovint's burned, torn trousers. Her left foot and shin were wrapped in a torn jacket. Of course, there was a huge investigation done here. The bodies were found. They were taken to a medical examiner. We were trying to figure out what was going on. It was concluded that they all died of hypothermia. However, there were injuries that just did not match the diagnosis of hypothermia. For instance, Slobodin had a cracked skull, and even though it wasn't a fatal wound, it was a question as to how he got it. 4 of the bodies had injuries ranging from crushed ribs, their eyes were removed, tongue appeared to have been cut out. Others had massive tissue damage that was thought to be pre-mortem, not post-mortem. including parts of the lips and facial tissue were gone. Fragments of the skull bones were missing. Some were missing their eyebrows. Yet all of them, even with all of this damage, their cause of death was listed as hypothermia or cardiac arrest from hypothermia. This area was very popular with the Mansi people, which is an indigenous people that have lived there for a long time. This was supposedly their ancestral home where they had lived for forever. So immediately they were questioned. It was thought that maybe they had attacked. And they spoke that the area was supposedly cursed, and that perhaps something supernatural had occurred. It was ruled that the Mansi had nothing to do with the deaths, but still questions remained. Now, as I was saying, and I'm going to try and read this off for you, there were no indications of other people nearby the pass apart from the nine travelers at the time. The tent was ripped open from within. The victims had died within 6 to 8 hours of their last meal, and traces from the camp showed that all group members left the campsite of their own accord on foot. There were some levels of radiation found on one of the victims' clothing. To dispel any theories of an attack by the Mansi people, someone stated that the fatal injuries on 3 of the bodies could not have been caused by human beings because the force of the blows had been too strong and no soft tissue had been damaged. That's right, let me correct myself. Only 6 of the 9 were claimed to have died of hypothermia. I was wrong. 3 of them had fatal injuries, and these injuries were some kind of massive force of trauma that hit their body so hard it crushed bones and internal organs. Of course, this being Russia and this being the 50s and this being the middle of the Cold War, everybody thinks there was some kind of cover-up. People have been talking about this for years, that perhaps the government and the military knew a little bit more of what was going on, particularly with the fact that one of the victims showed up just a little radioactive, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense. At the time, of course, the official conclusion was that the group members all died because of a compelling natural force. And the investigation was closed in late May of 1959. It has been over 50 years, and people are still trying to figure out what happened on the Dyatlov Pass. There have been multiple explanations for it, from an avalanche that covered the campsite, even though it doesn't make any sense, to the Mansi people, which of course everybody believes that didn't happen, to the idea that a Yeti attacked the camp and they were trying to run from a Yeti, which makes no sense whatsoever. Some believe that there was some kind of government involvement and that they were attacked by government agents. And that is how they died. And lastly, and the most interesting is remember, this is in the middle of the Cold War in the 1950s. And apparently not too far from where they were was a Russian air base. And what they believe could have happened is that some type of explosive testing was done, and that by the testing it had driven them out of the tent and caused all of these injuries. That perhaps the 3 that were injured severely were outside near where the device may have gone off, and that might be what caused their massive injuries without damaging the tissue. And then, of course, the last is that it was some kind of infrasound. Now, for those of you who don't know, infrasound is they're sounds that we can't actually hear, but our brain registers them, and they give us the creepy feelings or the things that make us feel like there are ghosts whispering around us when there really isn't any. Infrasound has been thought to be used to torture and panic before, and it's believed to be the cause of many hauntings that aren't actually hauntings. It's some kind of infrasound that we're picking up that's being created that's actually setting us to have physical discomfort and mental stress. And infrasound could actually cause someone to freak out and have a panic and cut their way out of a tent and run out into the cold against their better judgment in an unprepared manner, thus leading to their deaths. We'll never really know probably what happened. Whatever they found will probably never be uncovered. Maybe it was something as simple as the cold got to them. One of the things that happens when you get hypothermia is something called paradoxical undressing. Now, this is where you start to get so cold that you feel hot. Your body temperature has dropped so low that you feel hot. And you start taking your clothes off, removing the clothing, because you feel like you are too hot to be wearing that clothing. And this, of course, makes the hypothermia worse and speeds up your death. And that is certainly a possibility. No one is probably ever going to figure out what happened to these 9 young men and women out there in the middle of the woods. But since it happened, it has now been named after the leader of the hike, Dyatlov. And it is called Dyatlov Pass. And it is one of the biggest paranormal mysteries from Russia from the past 100 years. So, would you go hiking in Dyatlov Pass? I certainly wouldn't. I don't want to find out what happened to them. So I wouldn't be up there in the middle of winter. And honestly, I probably wouldn't go hiking anywhere where that's that cold in the middle of winter. That's just me. It's really sad that it happened the way it did. And people have reopened the investigation multiple times. Everybody has tried to figure this out. And like I said earlier, they probably never will. So that is our story for today. Dyatlov Pass. Very mysterious and creepy thing that happened. Was it aliens? Was it some kind of Mansi spirit protecting the pass? Was it a government cover-up? Did they know something that the government tried to keep quiet? Who knows? So, folks, I hope you enjoyed this story. I hope that you guys are having a great May. And I'm going to leave you with just one more thing. And that is, never go hiking someplace you don't know that well. Really, just don't do it, honestly. Because you just never, I wouldn't have done it. I don't know why they did it. But anyway, that's our story for today. That's the show. This has been the Carolina Storyteller. I'm the Carolina Storyteller, Jonathan Phoenix. And as always, stay spooky, my friends. We'll see you next time.